Airbag Man. Designers and manufacturers of airbags and air suspension systems bring you On Air, a rear coil spring suspension replacement system that will give you leveling control for when you're towing or carrying additional load. Fitting airbags to the rear of a Toyota Land Cruiser 200 is a relatively simple procedure and involves removing the existing rear coil springs and replacing them with airbags. The rear coil springs are compressed or shortened using a coil compressor, making them easier to remove. Both rear shock absorbers are detached at the lower end, and so too is the rear sway bar. A hydraulic hoist jack lifts the chassis up from the rear axle, which will allow more room to remove the coil springs. There are no bolts holding the springs in place. The coil is lifted from the lower spring seat, then manoeuvred forward and outward. Now that the coil springs have been removed, it's time to fit the inflation valves and airline tube that will later attach to the airbags once they've been fitted. Two standard TYRE inflation valves are fitted to a bracket underneath the rear of the vehicle. Between where the airbags will be located and the inflation valves, air lines inside and outer protector tubing will be run. One end of the airline tubing is connected to a push-to-connect fitting in the top plate for the airbag, which is secured to the upper spring seat of the chassis. 3 press studs and a bolt hold the top plate in place. The air lines inside the protector tubing can now be run back to the inflation valves at the rear of the vehicle. The airline tube is trimmed to length and then neatly inserted into the push-to-connect fitting at the back of the inflation valve. The airbags can now be fitted between the spring seat and the top of the rear axle in place of where the coil springs were previously located. The airbags can now be inflated manually using an external air compressor. As the air pressure increases inside the bellows, it rolls up the piston assembly. This action pneumatically lifts the vehicle's chassis and body upwards off the rear axle, allowing for leveling control and adjustable ride height. Releasing air from the airbag lowers the vehicle closer to the ground. Once both airbags have been fully fitted to the rear of the Land Cruiser, the shock absorbers and sway bar can be refitted to the underneath of the vehicle. The on-air system is now complete, using manual inflation to raise and lower the vehicle for adjustable ride height. When towing or carrying uneven load, the Land Cruiser can now level up a sagging rear end from rear to front and side to side. Air control for fingertip inflation and deflation. As an alternate method to manual inflation, Airbag Man provide a range of air control systems to provide leveling control from on board the vehicle. A heavy-duty 12-volt air compressor mounted on a custom-made bracket is used to pump air through the airline tubes to the rear airbags. The compressor can be mounted underneath or inside the vehicle. Dual switches control the compressor and the flow of air to each airbag to either inflate or deflate. A digital gauge will monitor the air pressure in each airbag. When towing a caravan, boat, trailer or carrying load, the rear end of a vehicle can sag. With an Airbag Man air control system, both switches can be applied to pump compressed air into each airbag simultaneously. As the compressed air fills and the air pressure increases in each airbag, the airbags inflate and rise to lift and level the vehicle to the desired ride height. As the rear of the vehicle rises up to the level, safe driving position, the air pressure inside each airbag can be seen in real time in the digital gauge. Once lifted to the desired ride height, simply release the air control switches. When carrying an uneven load, a vehicle can sag to one side. Airbags can be used individually to level up a vehicle from side to side. This particular Land Cruiser has been fitted with manual inflation and air control inflation. Depending on the load, it takes less than 30 seconds to inflate the airbags, lifting the rear of the vehicle from the lowest to the highest ride height position. Optimally, it is the level ride position that is sought for the safest of driving conditions. Hitching up a trailer or caravan is made easier simply by lowering the rear end of the vehicle. Switching downward deflates the airbag. As the air pressure decreases, the rubber bellows rolls back down the piston assembly, lowering the vehicle chassis and body closer to the ground. Once the tow ball in the rear of the Land Cruiser is below the level of the trailer hitch, the vehicle can be carefully reversed to align the tow ball underneath the trailer hitch. Switching upwards with the dual control switches, the onboard air compressor inflates the airbags and lifts the rear of the vehicle. The rising tow ball gently locates itself into the trailer hitch, making trailer hitch ups effortless and at the same time levelling up a vehicle under load. Replacing the rear coil springs and fitting on-air airbags literally means your vehicle is riding on air. Apart from the benefits of adjustable ride height and levelling control, on-air airbags improve a vehicle's suspension and handling, especially when towing or carrying load. Airbags enable a vehicle to carry its maximum load carrying capacity and at the same time improve the overall ride comfort for the driver and passengers. There are many benefits to replacing a vehicle's coil springs and fitting on-air airbags. Beyond performance and convenience, it is the safety aspect that comes with being able to tow or carry load in the correct and level position that is all important. So lift your rear end up off the ground, call the Airbag Man and get your vehicle back on the straight and level with on-air. Airbag Man, designers and manufacturers of airbags and air suspension systems.